The burning colonies. The colonies burned. From orbit, the devastation looked unreal, like a storm of fire tearing across entire continents. Cities that had taken decades to build were erased in minutes. Towers collapsed, oceans boiled near the impact sites, and whole populations screamed into silence as the alien fleet unleashed its fury. For the colonists, there had been no warning. One moment life had followed its usual rhythm. Markets buzzing, children playing, workers mining beneath the surface. The next, the sky split open. Strange warships descended, their weapons glowing with colors no human eyes had seen before. The attackers did not demand surrender. They did not open talks. They came only to destroy. Millions of human lives vanished in the firestorm. News traveled fast across the colonies, carried by desperate distress calls. Ships tried to flee, but most were hunted down and turned into drifting wrecks. The messages that reached Earth were filled with static, broken words, and the cries of people who knew they would never be saved. The images shook the homeworld. Entire families on Earth watched their distant relatives perish in real time. Whole cities sat in silence as the broadcast showed fire raining from orbit. The colonies were not just outposts. They were humanity's hope for survival beyond Earth. They were dreams carved into alien soil, proof that the species could endure in the galaxy. And now, they were ash. At first, governments argued in confusion. Who were these attackers? Why had they come? Some believed it was a misunderstanding. Others thought it was punishment for expanding too far, too fast. Scientists searched old records of alien signals, hoping to find a clue. But the truth was simple. The unknown enemy had chosen violence. No warning, no mercy, and Earth would answer. In the high chambers of the United Defense Assembly, the leaders spoke little. Their faces were pale, their voices steady but cold. Every representative knew that words would not heal the wound. There was no peace to be made, not after so many millions had been erased in fire. A single decision was made. Not to defend, not to negotiate, to erase. Across Earth's orbit, the warships stirred. Silent giants, hidden for years, waiting only for the order. They were not made to conquer territory or to protect trade. They had been built for a single purpose: to end wars before they could consume humanity again. Civilization on Earth had known centuries of blood, empires rising and falling, nations burning cities to dust. Humanity had learned the price of hesitation. The colonies had been a promise. Never again will our children face extinction. And now that promise had been broken, so Earth's armada would rise. Among the stars, the enemy fleet waited with confidence. They had destroyed colonies before, other species who dared step beyond their place. None had resisted. To them, humans were simply another species to crush and erase from memory. But humanity was different. The warships leaving Earth were not crude vessels of steel and fuel. They carried weapons forged from centuries of relentless human innovation, tactics born from endless wars, and commanders who understood fear better than any alien ever could. The enemy thought they had ended the story when they burned the colonies. They thought humanity would break, would beg, would vanish into history. But in the silence after the screams, something new was born. Not grief. Not despair. Vengeance. And it carried the weight of Earth itself. As the fleet prepared to depart, billions of humans stood united. On every screen, in every street, in every corner of the world, people whispered the same words: they destroyed our colonies. And the answer came like thunder: then we erased their stars. The first warship fired its engines, tearing away from orbit in a blaze of light. One by one, others followed until the sky above Earth looked like a burning river, ships leaving to bring fire of their own. The colonists had screamed as their homes burned. Now the galaxy would hear humanity's roar. The silent fleet. The enemy did not expect resistance. Their armada drifted across the ruins of the colonies, scanning the shattered cities with cold precision. For them, victory was routine. They had done this before to countless species: strike fast, destroy completely, leave nothing alive. And when the smoke cleared, they moved on to the next target. But this time something unsettled them. The humans had gone silent. No more cries for help. No desperate broadcasts begging for peace. The last transmission they captured was not a plea. It was a single sentence spoken in a calm, steady voice. "We hear you. Now hear us. And then, silence. For days, their ships lingered, waiting for survivors, waiting for weakness to reveal itself. But there was nothing. The colonies were gone, erased. And Earth remained strangely quiet. The enemy's commanders debated. Some believed humanity had been broken. Others suspected a trap. But in the end, they laughed at the thought of humans fighting back. To them, humans were fragile creatures of flesh, small and weak, scattered across one tiny blue planet. They had never faced the full weight of the enemy empire, but the enemy had never faced Earth's silence either. Far beyond their sensors, in the black gulf of space, the human fleet moved. They did not roar or announce their presence. Their engines burned cold, designed to leave no trail. Whole armadas drifted like shadows hidden between planets, using the darkness as their shield. They advanced with terrifying patience, every move calculated, every weapon ready. On board the warships, there was no panic, no chatter. Only focus. Crews worked in silence, guided by centuries of discipline. Each soldier, each pilot, each commander knew what was at stake. The colonies had been humanity's future. That future had been burned away. What remained was vengeance, precise, unstoppable vengeance. The fleet did not speak of survival. They spoke only of erasure. Inside the flagship, the commanders stood before a vast display. The enemy's star system glowed in red, its suns, planets, and moons marked like targets on a map. The enemy empire had built its pride here, fortresses, shipyards, and cities that stretched across entire worlds. To them, it was untouchable. To humanity, it was already dead. Orders moved through the fleet without a word spoken. Encrypted signals, invisible to alien sensors, carried the final command: erase them. One by one, the warships prepared their weapons. Some carried cannons that could split moons. Others carried payloads that could collapse atmospheres. And hidden among them were devices no alien mind could imagine. Machines born from human desperation, engineered in secret, created not for victory but for extinction. Still, the fleet did not fire, not yet. They drifted closer, unseen. The enemy ships at the edge of their system went about their patrols, blind to the approaching storm. Alien officers laughed, convinced humanity was broken. They celebrated the burning of the colonies, drinking in the glow of destruction. They did not see the shadows behind them. When the first human ship appeared, it was not with fire. It was a ghost, sliding out of the dark, engines whispering against the void. The enemy patrol turned, confused, unsure if their sensors were broken. And then the second ship appeared. Then a third, then hundreds. The enemy realized too late. Humanity had not been silent because it was broken. Humanity had been silent because it was hunting. In that moment, across the system, alarms rang. Enemy commanders shouted orders. Fleets scrambled into formation. Weapons lit up across their defenses. But already they were surrounded. The human fleet had come not to fight a battle. It had come to end a war. The commander of Earth's armada gave a single word: steady and calm, begin, and the sky ignited. Fire across the stars. The first shot came from silence. A beam of white light cut through the void, so fast and bright that the enemy ships didn't even have time to react. Their patrol cruiser split in half, its pieces drifting apart before erupting into fire. Then the storm began. Human warships opened fire in unison. Space itself seemed to burn as thousands of weapons unleashed their fury. The enemy fleet scrambled, trying to form lines, trying to answer with their own weapons. But they were too slow. Humanity's first strike had already shattered their order. Enemy captains shouted commands, their voices full of panic. They had faced other species before, but never like this. Humans did not fight for ground or for glory. They fought with cold, precise rage. Every shot was aimed to kill. Every movement was made to destroy. The enemy fired back, their energy blasts tearing across the void. Planets lit up as beams of fire struck atmosphere. Entire moons shook under the assault. But humanity's warships did not falter. Their shields absorbed the punishment, their armor burned but held, and their weapons answered with unstoppable power. One by one, enemy ships exploded. First dozens, then hundreds. Each human warship moved like a predator, striking from angles the enemy had never considered. Battles that should have lasted hours were decided in seconds. And yet this was only the beginning. The commander of Earth's armada had not unleashed the fleet's full strength. The enemy still believed they could rally. still believed they could win with sheer numbers. But humanity had brought more than ships and guns. They had brought weapons designed to end civilizations. On the edge of the system, enormous carriers opened their bays. From them, strange devices were released, dark machines that glided into the void like shadows. The enemy saw them but could not understand. They mistook them for drones or perhaps mines. They were wrong. The devices drifted toward planets, toward shipyards, toward the very worlds that gave the enemy power. When they reached orbit, they unfolded, revealing engines of impossible design. And then they fell. One planet vanished in silence, its surface cracking as the machine tore its core apart. Oceans boiled, mountains shattered, cities vaporized. The enemy screamed across the comms, their voices full of terror as their homeworld became nothing but ash and fragments. Another device collapsed the skies of a fortress planet, stripping its atmosphere in minutes. Billions suffocated as the air was torn away. The world went quiet, nothing left but barren rock. The enemy's pride, their capital world, shook as a third machine drilled into its heart. Towers fell, continents burned, and the very crust split apart. In the fleet above, alien officers stared at their screens in disbelief. This was not war, this was extinction. Still some tried to fight. Enemy battleships charged, firing everything they had, desperate to protect their system. They swarmed the human fleet, throwing themselves into the fire. For a moment, the void was chaos. Ships colliding, explosions brighter than suns, weapons ripping through the dark. But humanity did not break. Their ships fought with precision, forming walls of steel and fire. Enemy attacks shattered against them like waves against a cliff. And when the counterattack came, it was absolute. A single human dreadnought fired its main cannon, a weapon so powerful it tore through 3 enemy ships in a straight line. Another unleashed a storm of missiles, each one finding its mark, each one turning a warship into burning debris. The enemy had thought humans were weak. Now they understood. Humans did not just fight wars. They ended them. As the battle raged, the commander of Earth's armada watched in silence. The screens showed destruction spreading across the system. Enemy ships died by the thousands, their worlds burned, their empire crumbling in hours. But there was no joy on the commander's face. Only cold certainty. The colonies had burned. Now the enemy would know what that felt like, and humanity was only halfway done. The shattered system, the war was already lost. The enemy's proud fleets had been reduced to drifting wrecks, their planets broken, their cities burning in silence. Billions had perished in hours. Yet still, some commanders refused to accept the truth. They gathered what ships remained, forming a desperate circle around their last star. It was the heart of their system, the light that had given them life for countless generations. Around it spun their last fortress, armed with weapons built to defend against any threat, but not against this. The human fleet approached without hesitation. Their warships cut through the darkness, weapons glowing, shields unbroken. Behind them, the void was littered with wreckage, shattered cruisers, burning frigates, ruined stations. Each piece was a reminder. Humanity had not come for conquest. They had come for erasure. On the enemy command channels, voices cracked with fear. Some begged their leaders to retreat, to abandon the system and flee into the unknown. Others shouted for vengeance, demanding they fight to the last ship. But none of it mattered. Humanity was not offering them a choice. The first wave of human fire destroyed the outer defenses. Massive cannons on the fortress world erupted in flame, silenced in minutes. The remaining enemy fleets charged, screaming into the void, but were swept aside by human dreadnoughts. Every move the aliens made had already been predicted. Every desperate tactic was crushed before it began. And then, humanity revealed the weapon no one had ever seen. At the center of the fleet, a colossal ship drifted forward. It was larger than any enemy vessel, its dark hull covered in strange patterns that pulsed with energy. It carried no ordinary weapons, no visible cannons or missile bays. Instead, it carried something far worse. The enemy watched in horror as the ship released its payload, a device so vast it looked like a second moon. It unfolded slowly, like wings stretching open, revealing a heart of burning light. The enemy's sensors screamed warnings. Energy readings spiked beyond anything they had ever recorded. Even the humans aboard their own ships felt the weight of its power. their displays flickering with numbers that made no sense. The commander of Earth's armada gave the order with a calm voice. Activate. The device pulsed once, sending ripples across the void. The very fabric of space trembled. Enemy ships staggered as their systems failed, their engines flickering out. Gravity shifted in strange patterns, pulling ships off course. And then the star itself screamed. The device had locked onto it. Not a planet, not a fleet, but the very heart of the system. The sun that had given life for billions of years was now a target. The enemy commanders shouted in disbelief. This was impossible. No species would dare. Destroying a star meant destroying everything around it, even potential spoils of war. It was madness, but to humanity it was justice. The device grew brighter, feeding on the star's energy, pulling it into itself. The surface of the sun began to twist and boil unnaturally. Streams of fire ripped outward, drawn into the machine. The entire system shook as planets were pulled from their orbits. Moons cracked under the strain. Enemy ships scattered, trying to flee. But the gravity shift held them like chains. One by one, they were dragged into the chaos, torn apart by the star's rage. On the fortress world, billions looked up at their sky as the sun itself began to break. Flames reached across space, blotting out everything. There was no escape, no hope, no mercy. The human fleet watched in silence. They did not cheer. They did not curse. They simply bore witness as the star that had once lit an empire collapsed into fire. And when it came, it was absolute. The star imploded, folding in on itself with a blinding flash. In seconds, the entire system was consumed. Planets vaporized, moons shredded, fleets turned to dust. The fortress world vanished into the explosion, erased so completely that not even ash remained. Silence followed. Where once there had been a mighty star system, there was now only darkness, a wound in the galaxy. Humanity had erased not just their enemy's fleet, not just their worlds, but the very sun that had given them life. The colonies were gone, but so too was the empire that had destroyed them, and Earth's fleet turned away, leaving behind nothing but silence and shadow. The message of fire. The system was gone. Where a star had once burned bright, there was only a scar in space, a dark wound glowing faintly with drifting debris. No ships remained, no planets, no survivors. The enemy empire, once proud and unshakable, had been reduced to silence. For humanity, the war was over. But across the galaxy, billions of eyes were watching. Other empires, other civilizations had seen the flames. They had intercepted fragments of the battle, caught the final screams as the star collapsed. And in every palace, every council chamber, every war room, the same thought spread like fire. The humans did this. For generations, many had thought little of Earth. They had seen humans as reckless explorers, spreading colonies across the void without caution. Some had admired their ambition, others had mocked it. A few had whispered warnings, saying humans were too dangerous to provoke. Now no one doubted. The collapse of the enemy star system shook the galaxy more than any war before. Empires that had stood for centuries trembled. Warlords who had conquered dozens of species sat in silence, staring at the reports. Even the most powerful alliances paused, rethinking their strength, because humanity had not just defended itself. Humanity had not just fought back. They had erased, and they had done it with calm precision, without hesitation, without mercy. In the aftermath, the human fleet returned home. Their warships, scorched but unbroken, drifted once more above Earth. The people of the homeworld looked up, seeing their defenders in the sky. Billions stood together in silence, united not by victory but by a warning carved into the stars. The colonies were gone forever. Entire families were lost, their dreams erased. Humanity mourned them, but they mourned with clenched fists. They did not collapse into despair. They had shown the galaxy what grief could become when forged into fire. On every broadcast across every world, the same message was spoken by Earth's leaders. Their words were simple, spoken without anger, without pride. We do not begin wars, but if you burn our homes, if you kill our people, we will end you. Entirely. The message spread faster than light.